G'day. Well, I'm really pleased to bring you this special feature, which is all about the purchase process. So exchanging, cool-offs, how does that change in a 66W or an auction situation? What are the steps involved? Where does the loan fit in? Working with your agent and your conveyancer. It's something I'm really proud to help my clients with. I really get satisfaction in helping them get an amazing outcome, and let's get started and get into it. Okay, you'll see now the some slides. Now, I don't apologise for the fact that these are actually hand-drawn. It's a throwback from the way I've done it in a notepad, sitting over a table with clients, but going electronic, I didn't see a reason to change that part of it. The basic process is 6 weeks. I'll do standard first, and then I'll talk about what might change. So from exchanging contracts, that's a physical thing where it might be paper or electronic, but you sign one side, the seller signs the other side, and an authorised entity, the agent or the conveyancer solicitor, exchange them. When you hold the signature of the other party is when you have legal rights. So that's an important thing. The exchange means the dated, signed signature of the other party, exchange contract. That's when you have certainty. The normal process is 6 weeks or 42 days in New South Wales through to the settlement day. So that's the day that you own a property, you get a mortgage, the bank, you have a loan to the bank that you're paying them back, and happy days, that's celebration day. All right, so the traditional purchase looks like this. A cooling off period where you pay 0.25% deposit at the exchange, and you have 5 working days in which you can withdraw. So if you are buying for, say, $800,000, that's 8 2s are 16, 8 5s are 40, about $2,000. So $2,000 you put cash down and you do all your due diligence, which we'll talk about in a sec. So traditionally, as I say, 5 working days, and at the end of that, paying a 10% cash deposit. So what changes, or what can change? If you look at this slide, you might look at, commonly these days, people ask for a 10-day cool-off. A lot of purchases in the Hawkesbury area where I primarily work do have cool-offs, and it is a situation where that can be negotiated. And commonly, noting how banks and the legal process can take time, 10-day cool-off is becoming far the norm. It might also be acceptable to pay a 5% cash deposit. So using that $800,000 purchase, $40,000 instead of $80,000. It may also be a deposit bond, and we'll work through that. On the left, you'll see in the green, obviously negotiating the dollars, the details on the contract, and having agreements on those things. That's your solicitor who'll advise you on that. And down the bottom you see I noted it could be, say, a 12-week settlement. Now we'll come up to that in the negotiation tips session, but it might be really helpful to the seller to have more time that they can get the certainty of their sell and have more time to look for their home. So that actually could help them a lot and might just get you a better outcome. That's something you'll work with the agent on. Okay, it gets a bit messy here, and I'll put myself over this bit so it's not quite as bad. With the loan side, it would be ideal and preferred to have your pre-approval lodged before you're negotiating. It's common enough, it all happens at once. Commonly, people don't want to take action until they find the right place. But it is tricky to get the loan going and the exchange and the call-off and everything all at once. So it's far better to get a pre-approval first. They generally last 6 months, some are 3 months. That's a whole different topic, but getting pre-approved first would be really helpful. And then during the cool-off, you've got a bunch of due diligence to do. So valuations, building and pest if it's a Torrens property, or strata reports if it's a strata property. Your conveyancer or solicitor is going to help with all that part. The valuation will get done by the bank if needed, and that'll be sometimes an automated process, sometimes accepting the contract, sometimes they send a valuer out. Each bank and each situation and numbers are different, and we'd help you through all that. Further checks on the contract that your conveyancer or solicitor is doing. So that all takes time. And then later, if I move myself here, later, things like building insurance, are you protected, planning utilities and movement planning, and the bank loan agreements. So that's the basic steps in the process. So how does this change if we go to an auction? So with an auction, you basically front end everything. You need to agree on the contract. So your solicitor or conveyancer sending details to the other solicitor conveyancer to make sure things like on use of deposit, default interest rate clauses, any special conditions, any things that are needed are agreed before the auction. It might be a longer or a shorter settlement. It might be the type of deposit you're going to use. But all those things you would normally negotiate, some before and some during a cool-off, you need to do up front. How much deposit do you put down? So you would still be obliged for 10%, but how much are you paying or offering? You need to be 100% sure before the auction because you'll have a 10% commitment on auction day. You need to be pre-approved as strongly as you can, and you can't get a full approval before an auction because you don't know the price. But you can get a very strong pre-approval, and that might be suitable. Particularly for someone who's in a strong situation or a next home buyer, it's not a big deal. For someone who's right on the margins, that's a considered risk you need to talk to your solicitor about. Reports like building and pest or strata and all the due diligence you need to do before. And you need to note that the full approval is going to come after the auction. And but it's a considered staged risk. You can get a lot of certainty in the process before the auction. So all something to consider. A nuance on that is if there's no call-off offered. This is commonly in the city, in the eastern suburbs, inner west, North Shore, sometimes in the Hawkesbury, particularly if it's a race to exchange situation and the agent considers it's the fairest way to offer all parties, put your best foot forward, give us a number, and we will sign with the first party ready. Now, with that, you want to get as much certainty as you can on the contract. So some conveyancers, some agents will either prepare the details on the contract, so write up all the details, and or even have a signed vendor copy, but not dated, which is not yet an exchange contract. Or particularly a sales advice is the instructions that an agent commonly writes up prior to exchange or during the process, and that gives confidence where we may be able to get a full approval before the unconditional exchange. So again, front-ended like an auction, have to be 100% sure. You want to get the strongest documentation you can, and we need to pick targeted lenders. So if these types of purchases are likely for you, we need to be focused on getting the right lender for you. All the searches up front, as we said. You'd ideally really want to be fully approved before the exchange, and it's a matter also of speed. So speed in lender, capacity to do the right thing for you is really important. So we'll work together on trying to get to the best outcome. So that's a little about the purchase process. If you want more, there is a lot on our YouTube channel. Check us out on Google and give us a call. Be happy to chat about it. There's a second linked session that I'll have also in this podcast and also online, which is all about negotiation tips. I hope you found that useful. Feel free to give me a call to talk about your own situation, and I look forward to helping you and your family and friends.